Okay, another important part of this entire relationship that Rhett and I have is really just a discussion about the space, the room that we're working in, the volume of the drums versus what I need to do to make the drums work in a mix. So one of the things that we talk about a lot, again, volume in the space. Rhett, a lot of times we walk into rooms that are all kinds of different. They're giant cavernous spaces, they're small spaces, they're acoustically treated well. What are some of the things that an audio guy like me can say to a drummer like you that's the most effective to help combat those problems with volume?
Sure. I think first and foremost, just like having open conversation, sound guy to drummer, vice versa is really important. Just having open communication, but, just being honest and saying, hey, like we're in a room with concrete floors, high ceilings, the sound carries really far. If you could think about giving me, 15, 20% less on cymbals or something, I think that's a great place to start. You can kind of gauge it from there and see if just holding back on volume is a good approach to it. Obviously, there's a lot of variables. It's not just simply playing quieter. Maybe you even use hot rods or, lighter sticks if you're playing heavier. Sticks like a 5B or something. Watching, snare volume too, and how much you're playing rim shots and accents, because those can carry, in a room where sound's bouncing all over the place. So I think that those are great starting points.
That's great, because some of the problems that we have are like mostly cymbals and snare. I mean, nothing else is usually an issue. Mm-hmm. But I also understand that no matter how long you've been playing, there's a rhythm, there's a sort of resonance to what your body's used to feeling when you hit those things, when you hit the cymbals, when you hit the snare, and even the relationship between those things like we talked about. So I absolutely get it. What are some of the stick options that you could use that sort of still keep that attack running through your wrist and elbows and all that kind of stuff that allows us to sort of meet in the middle where it comes to volume?
I think what's really important is the tip of the stick. And paying attention to that. A lot of 5B, 2B sticks, some of the heavier ones, I'll see oval tipped, like wood tips, nylon tips, and those get a more aggressive, like washy sound, which can be overwhelming. So, thinking about what tip, like an acorn or even a barrel tip, that'll give you a more like clear-cut, defined sound whenever you're playing the cymbal in this manner. And then, just like using lighter stick, these are 5A's, so pretty middle of the road, that's going to help, a lot on cymbal volume whenever you are washing on it.
Sure.
For sure.
And hot rods, anything like that, are those options?
I think hot rods are good. My thing with hot rods is I would recommend that more so in a smaller room, or unless you're going to be able to bump up the volume to compensate, because they're a lot lighter. It's a bunch of small wooden rods that are kind of taped together. So you don't get as much attack and aggression out of that. And so, with worship music too, it's very dynamic, and in the bridges and choruses, music can get, pretty high up on the intensity level. So that's kind of the trade-off with hot rods that you have to watch.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why we don't specifically say, hey, just play lighter, because we still need the energy for that song to transfer through the console and transmit out to the crowd. We want all of that to happen. So, one of the other things that we could do, of course, is a shield, but we want to be respectful of all the work that we've done with microphones and placement and making you feel like you're part of the team, all that kind of stuff. A lot of churches need to go directly to that as a solution, but we want to definitely be respectful of the time that we've taken, the money that we spent on microphones, the time we've taken to properly mic things, properly make everything line up correctly on the console before we just introduce a lot of reflections into the system. And then, of course, make you feel like you're isolated from the rest of the band. What are your thoughts on shields?
Yeah, so with shields, like you're saying, reflections is an issue. I've had multiple scenarios where tuned a drum kit, got it sounding perfect for the room and, what the room needed out of the drums. And as soon as you put it in a shield or behind a shield, just chokes the life out of the drum. It sounds different. And then, like you're saying, the mics, you spend all this money on nice microphones, and those are affected negatively sometimes, not always, but sometimes because of a shield. So with shields too, like you're saying, being cut off from the band, I think it's really important to have communication with people on stage. If you're trying to look at an MD or lock in with a bass player as a drummer. It's important to be able to see those people and feel that, because music, there's feeling to it.
Sure.
It's a dynamic genre. And so being able to see others on stage and communicate with them is a lot easier when you don't have that shield kind of surrounding you with, a ceiling and all that, and it's dark, there's no lights.
So there's several things that we can use. We can approach it with a shield, starting backwards. We can approach it with a shield. We can try sticks. We can work on just even more practice on playing with intensity but not volume. There's lots of things that we can do to kind of solve the volume thing. I think those are a lot of really great solutions that we can apply in churches. It just depends on where we're at, right? I mean,
Sure.
we can go at it in a large open space with a big PA and just have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to be cognizant of the space that we're in and just kind of read the room, as it were, and respect
Absolutely.
where we're at.
Yeah,
in the
and I mean,
congregation.
every room is different too, like sometimes you will need a shield and that's okay. Sometimes just using baffles on the cymbals is great. Sometimes pulling back in volume is enough to, overcome the issue.
Sure.
So
Rhett, when it comes to talking about a shield and all the things that we've talked about, what would you rather have? Would you rather have, if volume is an absolute problem, would you rather sit behind a shield, change sticks, play lighter? Like, what would be your solution?
I think in my case, I would much rather have someone tell me to continually play quieter, only because when you put up shields, I do feel like it cuts off communication quite a bit from people on stage. And at the end of the day, drummers can have like a little bit of pride in us. And so when someone tells us to play quieter, it feels different. It's not what we're used to. We feel like it's not going to work for the genre. But I think a lot of drummers would be surprised whenever they do hold back in volume, how, a sound guy can compensate for that and, turn up mic levels and all that. And coming through the house, it still sounds full and you get a good sound. So that would be my route before, using hot rods or shield or something.
Yeah, that's a great point, because when I'm coming at someone asking to turn down, it's not my ego speaking. And I certainly don't want a drummer to feel like I'm speaking to their ego either. I'm not
Sure.
attacking anything that they're doing. I'm just saying, hey, either I can't do anything with this, or this congregation isn't welcome to this volume, or whatever. There's lots of things. It's not me saying, I know better than you, you need to fix this. It's usually, hey, let's do this together, man. Let me do the part that I'm supposed to do by backing off and doing the part that you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important too, just with being open with communication, just if you ask someone to play quieter, once they get to a certain spot and it's good, just affirm that, be like, hey, I think that volume's great where you're at now. Thanks for doing that. And then I think because someone said that to me as a drummer, I know, okay, this is where my bass line is and kind of where that threshold is for me to play like as soft as I can or as loud as I can.
Great.